Welcome to another episode. Thank you guys for joining me here today. We're in Dubai for Token 2049. So I was like, let me get the best BD people I know into a single room and discuss BD and Interop, right? So the question I had in my head was if someone was to start working in BD today, could be in Interop, could be in crypto, what are some things that they should know, right? And why don't we start with like quick introductions? And in the introduction, I want to know like, how would you describe your BD style in 3 words? So why don't we start with Irena?
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'm Irena, head of ecosystem at Chainflip. Thinking about BD, my style is in 3 words: thorough, curious, and friendly.
Why do you say that?
Oh,
You
do you
have to
need a full
explain it.
answer? Of course. So in terms of thoroughness, it's all about, starting things and make sure you go all the way till the end, depending on the goal, and just thorough with communication, being transparent, just having all those little things always in mind and thinking that there's, even on Telegram, hopefully there is another person on the other side. In terms of curiosity, because there's so much going on, their priority for the team, and it's important to realize what your goals are. But I think for the BD, having this curiosity really helps you to be able sometimes to look kind of beyond what you're currently focusing on. And to me, it's also meaning thinking just 2 steps ahead and thinking what other opportunities are there. And I think it's very important for BD, and it's, you have to be agile, you have to be open-minded. And for me, this all sits within curiosity. And in terms of friendliness, I think there are definitely different styles of BD, and all of them have their merits. They're more aggressive style, they're more kind of, very goal-oriented style, and we can talk about it later whether it's sales and how you're motivated. But I think in terms of friendliness, it costs nothing to be nice. And for me, BD is a lot about relationship building.
Nice. Andrei?
Hey everyone, I'm Andrei. I'm the head of DeFi for LI.Fi. I lead the DeFi go-to-market. And if I were to describe my BD and sales style in 3 words, one would be bold. You need to don't be afraid to ask the right questions. Sometimes you might feel that you're over pushing stuff or that you're too aggressive, but it usually pays off. Now, on the other hand, you also want to be mindful. You want to know the boundaries and how much you can push someone on a deal. But in the same time, you also want to be very self-aware, which is the third point of what I would describe myself as a BD. And I think self-awareness is the most important one, because having a good self-awareness sense gets you to also know what are the other mini strengths of a good salespeople. So, for example, are you very organized? Are you doing a lot of follow-ups? Or you're more like, just vibing with people, just networking on the spot? It's about self-awareness and playing up to your actual strengths.
Wait, how did you decide that BD is the role for me? Because like, I don't know, like nobody grows up thinking I'm going to be the best BD guy ever, right?
Well, because I'm very bad at marketing, so that's why I thought, and I'm not a coder. I can't code, so it's like it's only BD what's left for me. And I actually how I started, and what I recommend to everyone out there to start in BD and sales in crypto. I know so many success stories of people that were just part of the community and they got up to the high ranks of crypto companies, up to CEO levels, just by being a community member. And being a good community member, you get to know the project very well. You get to sell the project, do BD for the project, and grow within the project. And I do think that probably crypto is the only industry out there that and has such a low barrier of entry for anyone, which is not like ex Fang and has like 10 years of experience in sales.
Nice. Like, so what is that one thing you feel like if I knew this earlier, I would probably, do things differently in my BD career? Is there something like that?
I mean, I'm pretty happy how I moved so far. However, I do think I would have started earlier.
Like earlier in life.
Yeah, earlier in life and in crypto. Like. But also, like, as a side thing, I do think that the pandemic and the work remote culture has helped a lot of people get jobs in crypto, because pre-pandemic, every team or most of the teams were still very local geography. So, that's something that morphed into what we have right now.
That makes sense. I feel like we're now in a global economy. Like I'm in India working for a company that was based in Germany, but then we have people everywhere. So, Jiayu, you're up next.
Oh, hi everybody. I'm Jiayu. I'm head of APAC for Li.Fi. Basically, making sure that Li.Fi make Li.Fi great again in Asia.
What do you mean great again?
I think Li.Fi has really good products, and it's an old company, like almost for 3 to 4 years. But it's and actually it is used by most of the top projects in Asia, like Binance, KuCoin, Bybit. But actually, very little people know about it, know about Li.Fi. So I just wanted to build more about the brand awareness of Li.Fi and make Li.Fi kind of the go-to maybe toolkit or development stacks when they think of swap and bridge.
Awesome. Then how would you describe your BD style?
Actually, it's bad to come as the last because you guys use all of my words,
You
right?
can reuse something. It's fine.
Yeah, so I was thinking maybe the first word I will give it is like Tai Chi. It's like Tai Chi in a way because Tai Chi is like yin and yang together. So you're like just now, Irena mentioned that being like friendly, but actually Andrei mentioned it to be like strong and assertive. So I would say my style is kind of like I read between the situation, I read between the projects, I read between where do we stand, and sometimes I'm trying to be soft, more listening, and sometimes I'm trying to be assertive and strong. So that's kind of what the first character I would say is like Tai Chi. And the second is I would say always I think of like mutual beneficial. Like sometimes I do sell, but also I give people a lot of other helps. Maybe it's not related with our projects. And in this way, as Irena mentioned, it's like kind of building relationships. So especially in Asia, like we remember people do us favors and we remember to return the favors later on as well. So it's always like think in a mutual kind of beneficial way. And the third, maybe just like still also like actually goal oriented. Even though Asian, we're trying to be like soft playing, but actually we want the goal to be achieved. So the third word would be like a goal oriented.
Nice. So I want to have more of a discussion, a conversation, right? So I want to know your thoughts on, do you guys think companies in crypto give BD enough importance? Because sometimes to me, it feels like everyone is so focused on tech that very few companies actually do BD right or give it, I don't know, a priority in the company, right? So what do you guys think about this? Do you feel BD is overrated or underrated in crypto? And anyone can go first.
I think if we are selling or if the product is providing a feature which is very commoditized, but which is standard, and then you should definitely give more focus to the BD. Because it's all about the clients, the projects, they can choose A, B, C. Why they choose A over the others? It's because the BD is doing the groundwork. It's building the relationships for you. But of course, if you are very strong in your own product features, then you can more they do go a marketing strategy, will let others come to you. So I would say this depends on what kind of the products the company is offering.
Got it. Anything you guys think about it?
I mean, I think firstly, it is very different because if it's more institutional digital asset, I think we could touch upon it, but I think it's very different because there are a lot of experience. And I think, look, there's a lot of natural limitations depending on where the company is in terms of its size. I don't think it's and fundraise stage. So I don't think it's a matter of underrating or overrating. It's all about resource allocation. And I don't think in crypto, a lot of founders understand how to smartly allocate their resources. So, and it goes both ways. Sometimes you have just the founder who carry the whole burden of BD at earlier on. Sometimes they overhire without actually budgeting for it properly. And it also, I think it's sometimes almost devalues the role of BD because that means that, okay, well, you weren't important enough that we account for you. And also I think we're a bit lost in terms of definition what BD is. It's very vague. And I think career progression is not very clear because again, we're just, it's a very startup like environment. But
so when do you think if you're starting a company tomorrow, when do you think is the right time to hire your first BD guy, and then like I shouldn't say guy, but like hire your first BD personnel, and then like scale that team, right? So when do you hire your first BD role? Like first few months, later stage? Should the founder take the burden early on? How do you guys think about it?
Yeah, I can chime in here. So first, all companies have founder-led sales or BD. You shouldn't have anyone in BD until you have at least a few deals closed by the founder. Because if the founder doesn't know how to sell his own project, how would someone external know how to sell the mission and the vision? Because in the very early stages, you're usually just selling an idea of what the product would be, or if you're actually selling a product, it's a very scratch product. It's just an MVP. After you have a replicable sell, you could hire someone, show them, and take them into all the sales calls and walk them through the sales process and see if they can replicate what you have done prior to that. But probably I would say at least 5 to 15 deals should be founder-led sales initially.
Got it. And then
I want to add something.
Yeah.
Actually, here Irena bring like, what's the definition of BD? Like what Andrew was just saying, it's more kind of a replication. But I feel like sometimes, especially in the crypto space, a lot of time when we BD do is like we're also trying to read what is the client's needs, and we give that feedback into the products so that they can ship out the product features, so that later on helps us to close the deals, right? So in that way. So BD is not necessarily like kind of just like a later replicator. We are also, or BD is also like can be joined at the first place, as you say, kind of like a founder mode. So come back to like what's it? But I'm not saying like yeah. So my point is just like
Yeah,
I think
no, I
BD.
get it.
I think like BD is not only just like replication.
Yeah, no,
But-
I get it. I think it's so. What you're saying and what I understand is that by BD, you want to just evangelize the project in the early stage, not actually selling something. Because if you don't have a product to sell, and let's say you just have a B2C product, then you have to evangelize the project, and it's sort of like BD plus some marketing or growth or hack growth.
Or even like a product feature thing, kind of. Yeah, product. So like, because actually joining crypto, I was working for Alipay, Alibaba, these Web2 companies. We actually like a BD, we also take the role of like, we need to define what is a market strategy. Like what is the market cap? What are the pain points of the users? And what are the solutions that we're providing? So I see this is more, also it's more like a product or a solution, less than a BD. And then because you need to know it from the very start, like who are you targeting, so that later on you can find your audience way much better and you can sell it way much better. So come back to is like, I feel like for crypto BD to be successful, you need to be like more than just a replication, but actually go even a little bit early stage as well.
So I want to like zoom out and ask you guys a question that I don't know, I think about quite often, right? Like, how do you sell? What works in crypto these days? Is it conferences? Is it like more cold reach outs, relationship building? Like what works for you to actually do BD the right way, right? And this can be super subjective. So I'm looking for like different answers.
Yeah. I think you need to find your own voice and style as a BD or salesperson. What I found that works pretty well is doing 2 to 4 conferences each year, talking to all your big leads, and then nurture and cultivating those relationships over the year. If you do too many conferences, it has diminishing returns. You're just meeting the same folks every single time, and you kind of don't have that much to talk to, because anyways, the deal is progressing in a very linear way outside the conference, in the chat, or doing the contracting work or doing the integration. So I think you want to be very strategic, one, about conferences. And about my own style, I did find that just not being overly aggressive or very salesy works best, especially in crypto, because there's so many salespeople in crypto. Everyone's trying to sell something. Just ask questions first, see if there's any sell to happen
Would you
there.
say conferences are a must for any company to like actually do BD seriously? Like you cannot avoid not going to a conference.
I do have an example of mine is probably one of the biggest perpetual DEXs on chain. I've asked them every single conference if they're gonna go there, and it was always no. We're building, heads down building. So I don't think it's a must.
Okay.
I think it's a balance, right? And depends on time, because counter arguably, depending where at your stage, there's, I think there's few strategies, maybe not necessarily for protocols, but for larger entities and L1s, there always has been a strategy, because the onboarding works very differently, is you need still to make yourself known and aware, and people need to understand what you're building. So you need to talk to people, because nobody reads anything.
Hey, that's not true.
Fair. But and then obviously when you start getting the traction, you can rely on the context for a very long time. You don't necessarily need it, but you still build that pipeline of trust. And I think basically to what you're saying, you need to go to conferences to start building that pipeline of trust. And then it's all about maintenance and where you see most of your pipeline actually inflows coming. But one thing it is noticeable, there's a certain, for all the protocols, social signaling, because if you have been for a while building, it's like, are they there? Are they not? Does it mean something is off, or at which capacity? So I think because it's still, it's a competitive environment. We're all still building products which are sometimes, compete, especially if you're within Interop. And it's, there people do notice that, I think.
What else? Like, what works these days? So conferences is definitely one. What else? Like, what are some tricks and tips that you guys have up your sleeve?
So for me, definitely it's by like referrals, like endorsement by somebody else who has credibility. Like for me to go around when I say, this is my target accounts, I want to be introduced to, I want to like to get to know them. I think cold call usually is very kind of a less efficient way of doing it. I will always find one, whether we have common, say, investor. VC is always a very good investment vehicle. And number two, like whether we have any like some common projects, and then to as a referral. And number three, if I cannot find any of these, so because I'm in Asia, I have some like friends from centralized exchange. I always go to them to refer me, because after all, follow-up projects, they kind of have relationship with centralized exchange, and they would. So when I was referred to, say by Binance, I was always get to at least a talk or like kind of a call setup, right? So I would say still like be endorsed referral is very important.
What do you think about like cold reach outs? Are they still in fashion, or is nobody doing it anymore?
I feel it's like all the spamming information on LinkedIn, on Telegram, it's very low efficiency, right? And then, but if we can maybe do it in a machine or AI driven way, maybe the funnel can.
But I'm never replying to my emails. Like if it's an AI generated email, I'm never like not even opening it. Hopefully.
Do you reply to cold calls on Telegram?
It depends on the first message, right? Like of course, if it's an introduction, sure, I will reply. And then if the first message is like interesting, I know the person from somewhere, I'll probably reply. But if it's like too BD, hey, we're building something, can you take a look? No, like I'm not taking a look.
Not clicking the links.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not clicking anything at all. If you send me your Calendly, I'm out.
Yeah, so coming back, I feel like cold reach, maybe if you do it in a very kind of AI-driven way, you don't like the cost to replicate is very low. Then if you send 1,000 Telegram messages and only 10 reach out to you, then that's okay. But for like a human effort, I would feel like cold reach is not the best way to do if you have other ways.
Okay. Anything else? Like these are the three things that I know without working in BD. So
Actually, like genuinely do your homework, I think is an important thing, because it's completely different interaction when you speak to people and you actually know what they're doing. And especially if you have an idea, work on it, develop, see how you can work together. And it obviously will feed into the second answer when you actually do outreach to people. It should be super small and literally like 3 sentences. This is how we can work together. This is, how you can benefit from it. But very, very short, and make it very tailored to what their needs is. And even with conferences, depending on your goals, like do your homework to prepare, do your homework to approach somebody. and that also fits with curiosity. Be like, understand what other builds, understand what pluses and minuses, and sometimes you can also come up with a solution how you can work together without knowing the actual planning to do those things.
What about like your brand on Twitter or like your company's brand? Like how much does that help? Does it help you get more deal flow, like more organic introductions in a way? Like what do you guys think about that?
I think it helps. I've used to use a lot LI.Fi's and Jumper's Twitter following and co-marketing as a sales tool. I'm not doing that anymore nowadays because I don't think it's that much applicable. And also the dilution of attention is way too high. And the cost of opportunity for us of doing co-marketing with every single partner is going down as we have, more and more clients. And also the other protocols, they're more interested into the actual product than, a retweet or, an AMA. But I don't think it's, the co-marketing and the brand.
On an individual level, like let's say if you had 10K, 20K followers and on the other side you have 100 followers, does that make a difference?
Yeah, it does. It definitely does. And we've done very good for some of our partners with co-marketing in the early days by doing on-chain campaigns. I know that they're, not in fashion anymore because all the users are, fatigued at this point of how many quests of, follow this, follow that.
But that's still from like a company account perspective, right?
Yeah.
But like I'm saying, if you go to a conversation and you have like 100 followers on Twitter, not a lot of people know you, does that make a difference in helping you build a better relationship or like close the deal? Or would you say like everyone knows me on Twitter, then it's much easier for me to close the deal?
Well, I don't know because I have a very small following. And
So it doesn't make a difference.
It doesn't. For me, it doesn't. But I guess that if, a BD with 50,000 followers probably would say that it definitely does. But for me, it didn't. And
But
I'm very
I
happy.
feel like a BD with 50K followers, he wouldn't just be like a BD
I
for
was
a
about
company,
to say
right?
exactly.
He can just do anything else.
It's a KOL.
As a KOL, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think no, it's definitely it definitely helps. The ROI and when it will come is not very clear, and there's a lot of dynamic about if you work with a company, how much of the content is actually relevant for the company or actually want to build upon that brand your own, and it will help you to get more organic inflow. But I think it's if you actually enjoy it, it definitely shows. Because there are a lot of nonsense, but at the same time, there are genuine people who are very interested in caring, and it's not necessarily something directly that could be converted to any deals, but it's definitely helps to get to know people. And as a BD, that's also what you need to
I feel like you have to have either one thing strong, right? Like either your individual brand should be strong or your company should have a strong brand. Because otherwise, like nobody takes you seriously then. Like you have to give people a reason to take you seriously. So unless you're like from a project that has raised a lot of money, has built credibility, because at the end of the day, it's about credibility, right? Like how do you signal credibility?
Yeah, so actually, I think as you say, like by signaling credibility, usually it comes best in a quantitative way. That's why like Twitter followers, how much money you raised, how many, say, transaction volume that you did, you throw out numbers and people are always kind of awed by that numbers. So like find if the company's Twitter followers not that good, but just find other numbers just to support you. And then that's a way to signal the credibility, as you said.
Okay. And then like, does gender make a difference? Like, is it like, do women sell more, or I don't know, crypto is a male dominated kind of an ecosystem. So does it make a difference? Like if you're a woman or a man?
Or
Don't look at me
woman man.
when you ask if you're a woman.
You guys should say, like, does it make a difference? Do you feel like people approach conversations differently, or like, do they reply to you quicker? I don't know. There's like the whole catfishing culture.
It's not actually very black and white. But in general, I think it gives you you see, it depends. Still, it's person to person thing.
Yeah.
But it's easier, I think, to approach people.
I mean, I want to know about your experience. Like, do you feel it's how has it worked out for you?
My experience is very funny. I feel like I can approach whoever I want to, but I never get approached ever.
How do you explain that? Like, why do you think so?
I don't know. Maybe it's just maybe I should stop wearing black or something.
What do you mean by get approach? Like they
Nobody would ever come and say hi first to me.
You mean like sell something to you or just like interact with you?
Interact. I always love this experiment where I would go to event and different kind of setups, whether it's more technical, whether it's financial, and I would just go and like walk around and stand there and just see how people just avoid me.
What about you? Like, do you see a difference in conferences? I don't know.
So I guess I have quite some stories to share here. Like I observe in some of the crypto space where some of the girls, they sell just with a lot of the appearance. Like I see them like wear very low kind of neck thing and then like with men and they go with this way. In a way, I feel like maybe it's efficient because at least you got people to talk to you. But also on the other hand, I feel like kind of it's unfair to put, I identify myself as a girl that I feel like we put us in a lower way to do the sales. Right. So that's one. But I think it's definitely very efficient, especially in a conference if you want to talk to somebody. And then it's very helpful. But for me, I feel like in conference, yes, being a female, being an Asian female, I definitely get to talk to people. But in say video calls, actually, I also feel a little bit sometimes because my language is not the best when I'm talking to some English speaking projects. I feel that I'm not most efficient one in selling. So I will always tag along some people from my team, whether it's Andrei, like who is native English speaker, or other like kind of Caucasian men to be with me, so that kind of to boost my confidence as well.
I mean, that's an interesting point, right? Because if you look at location-specific BD, Asia is one geographical location where every company has a different person as the lead, right? Like APAC lead is a well-known position in every company. But I feel like other regions probably don't have this specific title, or like nobody hires for, I don't know, US-specific US lead, right? Like
We do.
I was about to say you guys were hiring.
I mean, yeah.
We actually have a job post for that, Arjun.
But I feel like Asia is very specifically targeted because maybe it's a different language or like different culture.
I get what you mean. I feel like as we were saying, the US-based BD, it's more about like, say, your time zone, your availability, your physical geographic kind of presence. But for Asia, it's like, it's even beyond that. As you said, one is like, actually Asia is very big. Actually, it's wrong just to hire a head for APAC, because you have China, which is huge in crypto. You also have Japan, Hong Kong, South Korea, India is even part of Asia. You're right. Like, I feel like I can actually very hard to sell to any projects in India. So to come back to your first question, I feel like actually APAC is a lot of countries, to be honest. And then because there's so many countries with so many different languages and different cultures, so you definitely need to have local presence if you decide this is the geography that you want to go after.
But then, like, does it actually help you sell better in that region if I have a native Chinese speaker, for example? Because like I feel in India, it probably does not make a difference. Like maybe that's because in India, everyone is probably talking to each other in English. Like even at a conference, if I meet someone from India, for some reason, my natural default is just to talk in English. And then if they talk to me in Hindi, then maybe I think about it in my head and I'm like, okay, why am I talking in English? But then we switch back and forth, right? But I feel like with China or like, I don't know, Vietnam, if you find someone from your own country, by default, you're speaking in the native language. And there's like this natural connection for some reason. So why do you guys think that's the case?
Never hire an Indian to sell to Chinese.
Why India specifically?
No, just like because for us, like English is like a second language we learn, and we listen to BBC and ABC. We learn that, and then the Indian English is like totally a third language to us. It's very difficult for us to understand. So when you think about BD, it's actually like you lower the difficulty level for the other side. And then if even like just by basic communication, it's difficult for the others to understand, you are really increasing your own like difficulty level in sales, right? So definitely if you can sell talk in a native language, it just makes conversation way much more easy. That's number one.
Does it like help you build trust with the customer easily?
of course, also like because in Asia, it's actually, or I would say at least in Chinese speaking community, like relationship is one of the most important thing. So relationship in Chinese we call it 关系. 关 means like close, 系 means connection. So it's kind of quite a cabal thing. And because kind of we fight together, we do things together. So later on, you help me, I help you later on. So, and that's why by speaking about the same language, that you can know more about the background of the other people, and then even talk about something other than just the projects, the business. You need to talk about your personal stuff. You need to talk about your, maybe like for Chinese, you talk with Chinese projects, you even share like personal meme coin trading strategy, and then that helps to build the bonds together. So by being a native language speaker and be exposed in that country, definitely helps you to build the whole 关系 and the relationship. And also like we kind of really focus on those long-term foster thing. If this project doesn't work, later on you switch another project. We still help out each other. So kind of like a long-term thinking in this way.
Do you think this is a barrier? Like, have you experienced it where, because someone is from China, you guys speak different languages, it's harder to sell to that person?
I mean, yeah, of course, it happens. If you have a language barrier and then a cultural barrier, it's harder to sell. But with most sales or projects, I do think that, just pushing the deal, providing meaningful value and respecting your sales playbook would anyways take you pretty far along. But if you have those barriers, then obviously it's way harder to, get the deal through the finish line.
Yeah, actually, I want to chime in here. Like, I understand some of our like, you guys were telling me like, oh, why this project is just ghosting me. For Asians, because one, we are bad at saying no. And I mean, we see you guys in person and we say, oh yeah, great, we will catch up later. You thought you closed the deal, but actually no. It's just like the way that we're not good at saying no. But actually by being able to like speak the language, you can get them to talk. What's the reason behind the no? So that later on, as you said, you try to really kind of kick what's the value set to be provided there. So it's really helpful, yeah.
Okay, and then I want to ask about like PD specifically in Interop, right? Like, what are some things that come up often when you're trying to, I don't know, still sell an Interop protocol infrastructure, right? Because 3 years ago, 4 years ago, everyone used to be like, okay, what is a bridge? Right? Like, why do we need a bridge? So what's the current state today? What are people asking about Interop?
For us, Li.Fi the bridge. No. It's Li.Fi, the price discovery API with best price execution on chain. Oh, so the bridge? No. The DEX? No. It's a lot of educating that we have to do. And I think that's true both for, bridges, solver, DEX aggregators, because, one, liquidity being so fragmented and everyone kind of aggregating everyone, you need to show value for the product that you're building and also educate your audience and your clients of what you're actually selling and what the product is, providing the value. Because, a bridge will have a different value proposition than a bridge aggregator and vice versa.
So I guess like education in general is a problem for anything in a way, because like they have to understand technically what makes one project different from the other, right? But what else? Like, what are people asking about Interop? What do they want to know in calls? Like, is security still a problem, for example?
Security is definitely a big one, especially when we're talking about cross-chain transactions. Again, is, showing the data, showing people that actually you probably have better chances of winning the lottery rather than getting hacked when you're doing a bridge, because you have to explain that it's always the LPs that are getting hacked or getting the funds lost. It's not the actual bridge transaction happening from chain A to chain B. So again, it's showing data, educating your client. Besides that, I do think that another very, very important one, that goes hand in hand with security is the actual infrastructure that a bridge has. And then, you usually want to speak to more like technical people, like product managers or the actual CTO, of presenting why your bridge solution in Interop is a better one than the other. And for us as an aggregator of the said liquidity sources, we it's our job to know each architecture of each bridge and why it's better to use for example an aggregator than one single point of failure. So it depends on how you want to move around with it.
What do you think? Like anything else, anything that comes up often?
It's definitely probably BD and Interop is one of the least sexy jobs you can have because it's very true. There's a lot of various solutions at the moment, and you have to really have good understanding of what is going on and what are the pain points of somebody you try to work with, because it could be very different. It's ironically somewhat intuitive, but it only can get intuitive when you really go through all the info and start to get the understanding what is actually going on. And it's obviously very funny because also I think everybody's asking Chainflip whether we are a bridge. We're in DEX, but hey, fine. You can call us a bridge as long as you understand the underlying risks and also benefits. But I think, yes, overall, it's just, and it's also very commercial, people, which is, I'm happy to see people care about the fees, they care about the pricing. So it's quite positive because I think there are enough education when they understand where the potential benefits could come, and people are asking the right things, like from business acumen perspective.
Anything specific to Interop?
Yeah, to be honest, in Asia, I think Interop is still a very early stage concept. Like I was trying to sell this idea to, like, say, to do a podcast with some Chinese KOLs or East Asia KOLs, and they say, "What is interoperability?" And then I was even trying to find, like, it with Grok, like finding what's a proper translation for it. And actually, there is nothing. So the way I feel like how Asians look at it is to, as you guys was mentioned, like a very preliminary stage. Look at like, oh, you are a bridge, or are you a bridge aggregator, and then for them, like about the interoperability, about this
But
kind of
that's
chain
sort of like
fragmentation.
surprising because there have been Asian Interop projects that have been quite popular for the last like 5 years, right? Like earlier we had multi-chain. I mean, they got hacked, but they were quite popular. They were used by everyone. And then Seabridge is an Asian team. So I feel like Asia does have Interop exposure. So it's surprising that it's still very, very early and people don't know what is Interop.
Yeah, so when I explain to them like what is interoperability, they would tell me, "Oh, have you heard of Universal X?" It sounds like they're doing something similar. So we Asians kind of identify this interoperability with more kind of like a, say, as you say, multi-chain or like a chain agnostic kind of a prospect.
Okay.
In terms of like interoperability, it's like kind of like an operating system. It's very, kind of Western tech style. And for Chinese, I feel that our projects or our framework is really kind of user focused. What does it really bring for the users, right? So it's like a multi-chain or chain agnostic. It's like, oh, you bring users a good kind of a chain abstraction experience or like a Web2 smooth experience.
So it's like if you're more specific to the use case that it would unlock for the users,
Yes.
People understand better, at least in Asia.
Yes.
Okay.
In Asia, like all the projects, the best way to sell to them is like also tell them what you can bring to your users. Because after all, that's the engine of their growth. And that's usually how you hit them.
Okay. And then how do you guys think about institutional adoption of Interop? Because like, at least for the last 12, 18 months, all of these token standards have been the main focus for a lot of projects, right? And they are going after some of the biggest names in the world, like financial institutions. So there's like a different type of sales tactic that's needed, right? Because you're no longer selling to early stage projects, you're selling to institutions, right? So how do you see Interop kind of taking that next big leap and going into that stage where we can sell to institutions and then scale that sort of a process?
Another core strength of a good BD is adaptability. And when you see institutional money and financial institutions coming into crypto, you have to adapt your sales pitch from what you're selling to, your average DeFi degen CEO founder, to now talking basically with suits and pitching what Interop standards are and why one is better than the other. Or if they already have, let's say, an opinion, then for us, for example, we do want to offer a solution that encompasses everything that they would need. So you really need to adapt to what the institutions need and want.
Okay. And then
I have a question here, actually. I feel like interoperability and institutional kind of crypto adoption is not necessarily meeting together. Because if you're talking about, say, for a financial institution, when they want to touch crypto, they usually go to stable. And then if they go to stable tokens, they only go to like certain chains, like EVM or
But that's,
Arbitrum.
that's
They are
not
like,
true though, because
Really?
like all of the recent stablecoin launches have been on token standards, right? And
Yes,
these token
true.
standards have been powered by Interop protocols. So I feel like the tokenization use case of crypto, which used to be like what I used to be so excited about, because like in crypto you want to tokenize everything and bring it on chain. And over the last 12 months, like Interop has found product market fit in like asset issuance, right? And you no longer want to be just on Ethereum or like just on Solana. So the only clean, scalable way to do this is to use one of the
Interop-
Interop protocols.
Yes.
So I actually disagree with that.
That's an interesting point. Yes, I think you're right in terms of like asset issuance. Yes, interoperability do have a role there. And yeah, but in terms of like say if you help say asset management to like say help you manage your tokens, they don't go to this long tail token exposure, right? They just buy, or if you're talking about say across like a payment crypto, like we talk about, let's say PayFi. Actually, they just focus on certain limited chain and stable tokens. There's very limited place for interoperability. So of course, like as you said, I think like the traditional like financial institution is a really a bit also like a big realm. There are different players and different use cases. But you're right, asset issuance is definitely something that interoperability has a place.
I mean, interop sounds like it's a big word, right? Like, but if you think about it, if you're an asset manager and you have assets on 4 chains, like you have assets on Ethereum, Arbitrum, Optimism, Solana, you do need a provider like Li.Fi to swap between these chains. Or like you have Bitcoin, you want to go from Solana to like Bitcoin, native Bitcoin, you do need Chainflip, right? So I feel like there is utility of interop protocols in every way, because the ecosystem is no longer like binary tied to a single ecosystem. Like it's by default multi-chain at this point.
But sorry, I have to chime in here.
Yeah.
Like you're right. But the other side of the like thing that asset manager will think like if you partner with one ecosystem, one chain, you also get their like say liquidity bootstrapping. And then if you are like a chain agnostic, you are interop with all the chains, then you get nothing. Right. So it depends on whether it's an asset originator that have say like PayPal, they can do interoperability, right? But they want the vast distribution. But if you are like say you issue your assets, which is like a T-bill, which is quite standardized, and then probably you want to go chain specific so that you can rely on that chain's like liquidity and the other infrastructure to help you to do the first 0 to 1.
It's like, if you think about it, how within Interop the solution was built and what it was solving for, it's definitely on long-term perspective, one could argue could be relevant for institutions as well. But I think, and from what I'm seeing at Token right now, it's kind of getting clear where exactly institutions going to come in. And obviously start with ETFs, but you know, within token issuance, like RWAs and asset tokenization, and like XLR recently announced their solution for it. So that, I think that is the use case, but whether this use case is actually going to be the off-prime interest for institutions is, I don't think there is an answer for it. And then the second is obviously the privacy concerns, because if whether the banks actually would prefer to stay silent and issue their, you know, either have their T plus chain kind of setup or even app chains to operate, because there's a lot of regulatory requirements where just completely be broken if everything is going to be on chain. So I think for now it's very, very too early to say whether if it's going to work, there's going to be demand for it. And the last but most important thing is, I think with the mental model of how the flow could work, yes, but there's just no liquidity, because we can barely handle 1 million in volume. I mean, we can, but that's also partly one of our solutions, because a lot of protocols, they just can't handle the volume, and those guys looking to bring hundreds and billions on chain.
I feel like, so in my like theoretical knowledge and like my research perspective, it feels like these questions have an obvious answer, right? Like Can we do it? The privacy stuff, yes. The PMF seems obvious to me. These were questions for me like 12 months ago where I was like, does it even make sense? Like, can we actually do it? But right now I feel like the solutions are there. But what I'm hearing is that on the ground, talking to teams, the reality is people are still questioning these things. Like, it's not as obvious as it might seem. The tools are there, but we still need to work on education and explaining how Interop protocols can be a provider for some of these like tokenization needs or like the privacy stuff. There is a solution for everything, but maybe it's like not so obvious right now because we haven't seen enough examples.
But it's like in theory, almost like I would argue in theory they are, but we kind of need to go through this teething process when we start having those who trust and understand working with on-chain products and on-chain tools, and then stuff gonna start break so bad.
I'm still thinking
Unfortunately.
about your comment on like BD and Interop is the least sexy thing possible. Like, what makes you say that?
I think partly because it does require, in comparison to maybe, when you speak about DEXs, it's kind of very clear what's expected there, and you understand the mechanism. But with interoperability, you need to account for so much more. So you need to really geek out on a lot of things to understand it, and then a lot of conversations actually very technical.
Do you agree? Like, BD and Interop is not sexy?
No, man. Like, we nerd about token standards and, trust is a spectrum.
That is sexy to me.
Yeah, there is no the safest bridge. Everything is on a spectrum. Yeah, super interesting conversation. I mean, you're writing articles, Arjun, which take me like a day to read and understand. There's nothing sexy about that.
But I have to say something again, opposite. I feel like it's quite sexy in a way. There's a lot of rooms for discussion and learning.
Yeah.
Like, because yesterday I was meeting some like centralized exchange BD. They say, oh, your job is so interesting. And, like, not necessarily sexy, but interesting, right? Because you get to know things. And for them, like, also like say for those like payment sales, like they're just selling the same stuff and they feel that they are kind of a replicator.
Exactly. Like,
And
if
then
I
they
was
hate
working
it.
for a DEX, I'd be bored.
Yeah. So yes, it's not sexy. It's a hard work, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there's always something to learn or like explain.
Yeah.
Make geeks sexy again. How about that?
Wait, you are doing BD. How do I make it sexy? Okay, awesome. Like, anything else to add on this topic? Like, BD and Interop, how can we do better? What's next for like unlocking more adoption?
More adoption for BD in Interop. Well, for now, at LI.F I, for example, we do have more and more institutional clients and partners that are actually coming to us through inbound, and we're seeing that those clients did have some sort of relationship or experience with crypto prior to that, which is good. However, we do also see clients that had nothing related with crypto, and they're at least asking questions, and it seems like they're asking the right questions because obviously they have like a huge R&D department and they can hire the smartest people to research this. So we are going into the right direction. However, just doing outbounds and cold outreaches to JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs will probably not get you anywhere right now, but you need to walk around them and see if they're interested in that, because if they are, and it comes down to good BD, find out who the key decision maker is, get to know them, be friends with them, just share your knowledge. You're not selling anything, you're just asking questions, build that relationship, nurture that, and then when the right time comes, then you can actually push Interop through the finish line.
I would actually agree very much, and I add one thing. What is going to change in terms of dynamics, and as we've also just discussed, there's a lot of technical conversations which we can get involved right now, but as we're going to get more adoption, I think as a BD, you also need to prepare that the type of questions people are going to care are going to be very different, because if you're talking to business and with Interop is also B2B, you just need to show value very, very fast and very, as we also touched upon it, in a very easy to monetize, very clear way. And I also think just within the industry, there's a lot of movement towards, what is the revenue model? What is the business model? And people actually start caring about it because we need to start generating revenue. So I think it's there's will be more and more business focused, business driven BD. What's your actually input? What are your clear goals moving forward?
Any last thoughts before we wrap up?
I feel like always go back to the, as Irena put, like business model, like what's our revenue comes from, right? So I think for the last, 10 years of crypto, it's more about like making money, help users to make money, whether it's investing in Bitcoin or whether it's meme coin trading, right? And I guess this kind of use cases has been maybe deceased. And I think the next coming years can see like how can you help users to save money, whether it's in cross-border payment, like saving money, or like saving money in just doing like regular kind of in like say yielding on the farms, but if by just doing interoperability and you can sell. So I would say embed interoperability still in the project's value proposition is going to help a lot in bring interoperability a more kind of embedded element in the projects.
Awesome. So like, thanks a lot for taking out the time. I feel like it's a good reality check because in theory, a lot of things are solved. But in reality, like things need to accelerate and that's what we're all here to do. So it sounds like there is momentum, but there's a lot more work to do. So thank you for the reality check and thank you for your time.